You wake up, and there's nothing. No messages, no plans, no distractions, just you and the silence. And in that moment, it hits you. The fear, the pressure, a deep gnawing need to be needed by someone. This is the moment most men run. But what if I told you that this silence is the beginning of something unstoppable? Men are taught that solitude is a form of failure, that being alone means you're falling behind, that if no one is choosing you, you must be doing something wrong. That is a lie. The truth is, the man who embraces solitude becomes the most powerful version of himself. The man who walks alone by choice is building something deeper than anyone can see. This message isn't for everyone. It's for the men who are ready to stop chasing attention, stop begging for a connection, and start becoming someone who cannot be ignored. This is for the man who wants control, clarity, and complete dominion over his life. If you are that man, stay with me. In a world that glorifies noise, the man who chooses silence stands out. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, the man who waits, refines himself, and disciplines himself becomes elite. This isn't about isolation. It's not about running from people. It's about returning to yourself. Too many men jump from woman to woman, from job to job, from one friend group to the next, chasing approval, hoping someone will validate their worth. But they never stop to ask themselves, what happens if I stop chasing and just sit with myself? A transformation happens. And today I'm going to show you how solitude rewires everything from your mind and focus to your standards and your presence. When you stop needing others to see your value, they begin to notice you effortlessly. For many men, the fear of silence is the most terrifying sound. It doesn't scream, it doesn't judge, it doesn't threaten, but it reveals everything. The moment the world goes quiet, the notifications stop, and there's no one next to you in bed, the real battle begins. Because now, you have nothing left to distract you. No one to entertain, no drama to react to, no conversation to hide in. There is only you face to face with your own thoughts. And for most men, that's a horror show they've been running from their entire lives. You sit there, and the thoughts you've buried start to surface. The regrets, the shame, the voices telling you you're not good enough, the fear that no one will ever truly love you, the truth about how you pretended not to care, that girl you ignored, that job you never applied for, that version of yourself you promised you'd become but never did. It all comes rushing in. This is why men jump from one relationship to the next. This is why they keep chasing something, anything, just to keep them distracted. It's not about the girl. It's not about the likes or the attention. It's about not having to sit in that silence and ask the real questions. Who am I? What do I stand for? Am I proud of the man I've become? Most men never ask these questions because they already know the answer and they don't like it. But this is where real growth begins. Not in the gym, not in the clubs, not in motivational podcasts. Growth begins the moment you stop running from the silence and decide to look it right in the eye. You sit there, uncomfortable. You let the pain rise. You let the self-doubt echo. You feel the emptiness and refuse to fill it with cheap distractions. This takes more courage than chasing approval ever will. Because in that silence, something powerful happens. At first, your mind fights back. It throws every memory and insecurity at you, begging for an escape. But if you stay, if you remain still, something shifts. Your mind begins to settle, the noise fades, and underneath all that chaos, you find clarity. You realize you're still standing. You realize those thoughts don't define you. They are just visitors. You are not your insecurities. You are not your past. You are not the judgment you think others are casting. You are the man who stayed, the man who faced his own darkness and didn't run. That is rare. That is real power. Most men are addicted, and they don't even know it. Not to drugs, not to alcohol, but to something just as dangerous. Validation. They wake up and check their phone. Did she text back? Did anyone like that post? Did anyone notice me? It sounds innocent, but it's not. It's an addiction. It's a trap, and it strips you of your power. The search for validation is invisible. It hides behind being nice, behind overthinking, behind a fake smile and the constant yes when you mean no. You begin to shape your entire life around what other people might think. You say the right things to avoid conflict. You hide your real opinions to fit in. You tolerate behavior you hate just to be liked, and slowly, you forget who you are. Validation makes you weak because it places your sense of self-worth in someone else's reaction. You become afraid of being disliked, of being misunderstood, of being ignored. So you try to please everyone and end up being respected by no one. But here's the truth. Real power begins when you let it go. Imagine waking up and needing no one's permission to feel confident. Imagine saying what you believe without backing down, walking away from people who take more than they give. Being alone without panicking because you know you are enough without constant reassurance. This is what happens when you go through a validation detox. You stop texting back immediately just to seem interested. You stop adjusting your values just to make people comfortable. You stop apologizing for your boundaries. You start filtering people based on your standards, not on whether they approve of you. And what happens then? People start to notice you. But this time it's not because you're trying to impress them. It's because you are focused on something far more important. Your self-respect. Women feel it, friends feel it, strangers feel it. They can sense when you're not trying to be chosen because you've already chosen yourself. That kind of energy is rare and magnetic. You see, most men try to be liked, but the men who are admired, the men who are remembered, are the ones who stop trying. Not because they're arrogant, but because they are grounded, clear, and centered. They know what they stand for, and if someone doesn't like it, that's okay, because they don't bend. A validation detox is brutal at first. You feel the withdrawal, you want to explain yourself, you want to be understood, you want everyone to agree with your decisions. But that feeling fades, and what replaces it is peace, freedom, and a self-confidence that isn't built on achievements. You become the man who walks into a room and doesn't try to be seen but ends up being the only one people remember. You speak less, but everything you say carries more weight. You move with a quiet confidence, and in a world full of loud noise and fake power, that quiet self-respect stands out like a thunderclap. This isn't about being disrespectful, it's about being aligned. You respect others, you just don't let them control your emotional state. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need validation because you have already validated yourself. The men who changed the world weren't the ones everyone liked. They were the ones who stayed true to themselves, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it was unpopular. So ask yourself, are you living to be liked, or are you living to be proud of yourself? If you want to unlock your highest potential, this is the first step. Stop chasing approval. Stop seeking attention. Stop trying to be chosen. Become the man who chooses himself over and over until no one else's opinion has more power than your own. That's when you stop needing respect and start commanding it. There comes a point in every man's life when the fog clears. But it doesn't happen in the noise. It happens in the quiet, in solitude. That is where clarity is born. You don't realize how many of your thoughts are not your own until everything else is gone. The friends, the social media, the expectations, the opinions of others, they all drown out your own voice. And when you finally step back and give yourself room to breathe, you start to hear something you haven't heard in a long time, your own spirit. This is the moment you remember what you really want. Not what you were told to want, not what society told you to chase, but what ignites your soul. Maybe it's freedom, maybe it's discipline, maybe it's a legacy that no one else understands. But you, in solitude, it becomes clear. It's like wiping a mirror and seeing yourself for the first time, not the version that others expect, but the one that is real. In the noise, you are reactive, fragmented, constantly adjusting, reacting, adapting to be liked, to be accepted, to be validated. But in solitude, you stop reacting. You start observing, and then you start deciding. What energy am I allowing into my life? Who is draining me, and who is building me up? What habits are serving me, and what habits are stealing my power? Where have I been lying to myself just to feel safe? Solitude is the only place you can answer these questions without external influence. You remove the noise, and only the truth remains. Maybe it's painful, maybe it's uncomfortable, but it's real. And once you get a taste of that level of honesty, you can't go back to pretending anymore. This is where real standards come from, not from anger or ego, but from clarity. You stop tolerating mediocrity not because you're trying to prove a point, but because it simply doesn't fit in your life anymore. You start saying no more often. You stop apologizing for needing space. You start cutting ties with people who no longer align with your direction, not out of bitterness, but out of precision. Because solitude doesn't just clear your mind, it sharpens your focus. You become intentional. You wake up with purpose. Your actions align with your goals. Your environment reflects your values. You don't waste time explaining your choices to people who will never understand them. Why? Because you're not living for them anymore. When you spend enough time alone, your priorities shift. Drama feels like noise. Toxic people become obvious. Temporary pleasures lose their grip. And instead, you begin to crave peace, purpose, and progress. This is the shift. This is clarity. And here's what's so powerful. Once you've built this clarity, you become difficult to manipulate. People can't sway you with guilt, with attention, or with flattery. You're not chasing approval. You're following a direction. Your direction, your vision. And there is nothing more powerful than a man who knows where he is going and doesn't care who doubts him. You walk differently. You talk differently. You say less, but what you say hits harder. Because when a man knows who he is and what he's building, he doesn't need to explain it. He just lives it. This is the gift of solitude. It burns away everything that is not essential. And what's left is a man of purpose, peace, and unstoppable clarity. So if your world feels quiet right now, don't rush to fill it. Stay there. Sit with it. Listen. That silence is your life speaking to you. And if you're wise enough to hear it, it will change everything. You don't need more attention. You don't need more followers, more texts, more dates. You need more of you. More silence, more peace. More moments where you return to your core and remember who you are. The man walking alone is not lost. He is refining. He is evolving. He is becoming someone the world won't recognize because he doesn't look like he needs anything. He moves like someone who has chosen himself. And when you reach that point, something incredible happens. You don't chase life. Life aligns with you. The right people show up, the wrong ones fall away. Opportunities flow not because you force them, but because your energy becomes undeniable. If this resonated with your soul, don't just nod and scroll away. Take action, subscribe, comment, share this with a brother who needs to hear it. We're building a space where men can rise, not through anger, not through ego, but through truth and clarity.